another Aligner Insider podcast. Well, hello, everybody in podcast land. This is Dean Steinman, President of Ortho Marketing, and to my left today, the world famous speaker, orthodontist, entrepreneur, great guy, Dr. Barry Glaser, with another Aligner Insider podcast. How are you today, Barry?
I'm doing great, Dean. Today, I always want to check in, is Wednesday, October 6th, 2021. Doing well. Fall is here, getting a little bit chilly in the air, but nice. But everything's going okay. How you doing, Dean? I never asked you that question.
I'm doing good, thanks. And if anybody has listened to our other podcasts, they know what makes me smile. And based upon something that happened about 72 hours ago, I'm still smiling because the Jets got their first win of the year. So I'm a happy fella today. Those of you who follow us on social know that, I'm a happy guy when the Jets win. Me and Gary V are big, are big Jet fans there. Hopefully I get to buy the Jets before he does. So with that said, everything is great. It's fall here in the Northeast. Colors are changing. It's a little bit nippy in the air, but everything is good. And we have with us a special guest today. We have Dr. Adam Goodman, who is an orthodontist in New York City. How are you today, Adam?
Excellent. I'm also a huge Jet fan.
Woohoo!
The bar is so low. One win. It's sort of
what we need.
novelty.
It's a start.
One win. We're done. We're ready for next year.
It's a start.
I have to sneak one thing in here, Adam. You may not know this about Dean, but Dean at one point was offered to audition to be the next Fireman Ed. All right,
you're correct. I was offered that. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to the interview, but I was there once at a training camp, and I found the guy who did invite me, and he asked me to do a little take, and this is maybe about 5 or 6 years ago.
Because he quit at one point, didn't he? The original.
He did. Yeah. But I was on the jumbotron one day when they got me talking about it. I gave my little jet cheer, which was good, and I didn't even realize I'd be on it. And I got like 8 or 9 texts at the game saying, "Was that you on the screen just there?" So it was pretty good. So yeah, I was asked to. Because I'm known out there as one of the bigger Jet fans.
You should have done it, man. I just saw Fireman Ed is now on like a
Subway
commercial.
Yeah, like Uber.
Uber. Yeah, Uber.
Uber Eats. So
you had your shot there, Dean.
I did. Unfortunately, or fortunately, bye-bye. So we're going to talk a little bit about pricing. All right, from your and I hear this from all the time from my clients. As far as how do they price themselves? There are so many different options for the public out there now, with a lot of the do-it-yourself programs, a lot of the direct-to-consumer programs, and obviously we're big proponents here of seeing a specialist and don't do things yourself. Just I always use the analogy. Sure, you could go to Home Depot and buy roofing materials and put a roof on your house, but don't hire a roofer. All right. Same thing with this. Don't, sure, you can get aligners sent to you through the mail, but don't, because you're going to end up going to an expert afterwards to fix it. So with that said, let's talk a little bit about pricing. And obviously now people have options from do-it-yourself to traditional braces to aligners. So how do you feel as far as pricing goes? Is there a premium for aligners? Is it the same price as traditional? Should it be higher? Should it be lower? Some people say, well, I don't go to the orthodontist as much with aligners, so why am I paying more?
Well, I certainly do not have this really figured out, but I think I can share the different views that goes through, practitioners' heads. Barry and I talk about this, and I think we're always searching for the best thing. And it's hard to have one way to do it because everyone's at different stages of their practice. And some people want to work super hard and 6 days a week and have numerous practices, and other people are quality life or at a different stage. So it's such a simple question you're asking that's quite complex.
Right.
But I think some of the absolutes that are out there may not be as clear as people think. So for example, to simply say, well, I have to pay $1,800 lab fee for an Invisalign case. So therefore, I'm going to take my braces fee of X and I'm going to make it $1,800 more to cover that. That is, to me, a very elementary, simplistic way to look at it. I'm not even sure if people are quite that dollar for dollar like they might have been back in the day, because there's so many different things that make up an Invisalign case that could be more efficient to make up for that
Right.
cost. So that's one way. But I think what I struggle with too on this topic, and I won't ramble on too much about this because I want to have a good discussion.
Right.
But Barry, I think you probably think about this too. I don't know if the term is price elasticity. I'm not an economic guy. I know all the terms people throw out, but we all wonder, gosh, I just charged that person, proposed a $6,800 fee, and they walked out and said it was too expensive. And if for 100 of those people, there were a small amount that didn't start at that fee, but you made your fee, say, $5,800, and you might think, hey, I'm worth $6,800. Well, that's all great. And that's especially nice if you are thinking, I'm going to make a high fee. And if I see less patients, that's okay. It makes up for it because I don't want to work all that hard and I want to work a certain amount of days.
Right.
But if you're kind of thinking bottom line, the lower fee might bring more people in the door. What's that price where you'll convert more? Case conversion and fee really is the question, and volume.
Sure. And it all depends also, what type of practice you want. Do you want a volume practice? Do you want a more of a boutique practice? What are the goals for you? Everybody is different. You said some people want to work three days a week, 3.5 days a week, and have a different quality of life. Somebody works 6 days a week. So obviously, it all depends upon how you want to position yourself in the community, and as far as how much work you want to do, I guess, and how much work you could handle. Um, Barry, how do you feel about that as far as pricing goes? And for my clients, I never really work with the lowest, cheapest guy in town. I don't believe in big discounting or coming in at 29.99 for for braces or Invisalign in that realm. You guys are experts. You're a specialist, and to see the best and to get the best results, you have to pay a little bit more. You get what you pay for. So as far as what's your thoughts on pricing from that, Barry?
Yeah, so there's two things I wanted to touch on. One, I think it's a good observation, and I think Adam, brings up a good point. And it's not so easy to sort of find that sweet spot. Like let's talk about that first point. That, well, geez, if I, let's say, go from 6,800, using your example, Adam, down to 5,800, and then let's say you measured the metrics and you see that your conversion rate goes from 60 to 70%. I mean, at some point, and I'm not a math guy, but at some point you could do the math and say, okay, if I lower my fee by X amount, where's my break even point? But as you say, Adam, it's not so simple, because with that increasing volume comes other expenses in addition to more lab fees. Now, obviously, your Invisalign lab fee goes down, but with volume discounts, but you're going to pay more lab fees, and then you're going to maybe have to work more hours. Maybe you have to hire another staff member or two. So it's not as it's not a simple analysis. I think that maybe using something like Gauge, Dean, helps, so you can sort of look and see. Maybe you go for a year and you drop your fees and you see how it works and you see whether you really, whether it's not just, look, Adam, this all the time. We go to these meetings and it's kind of like this, you know, who started the most cases last year? Oh, my practice, we got 8 locations, we got 2,000 starts, and like everyone's like, oh my God, 2,000
Right.
starts. There's something wrong with me, and but
Yeah.
How
it's,
much
I
how
mean,
much
it's
money
only
did you make?
part of the, it's part
Right.
of the only, you feel so inadequate, but it's only part of the equation.
Right.
But so I think that there's a lot that goes into that. You have a practice, Adam, in Manhattan, your overhead, your rent, all those other things. I mean, you got to pay your bills and you want to make a certain living. So I think that calculation is interesting. But I think what's even more interesting, what I really wanted to talk about was, Adam, you made a post, one of the most engaged posts that we've had on the Liner Insider Clinical Chat Facebook group in a long time, and you posed a theoretical and maybe somewhat practical question. It's something that I think you were musing about doing in your own office. And what your you were posing the possibility of maybe charging less for your Invisalign clear aligner cases than for your fixed appliance cases, and there was a really big response. So I wanted to kind of maybe drill down on that one a little bit more and see how you came, what made you come to the realization that that might be something that might work for your practice, and how have you actually implemented that? What's it meant for your practice and your staff,
Yeah.
and what have you seen so far?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. So, Barry, when before Invisalign came around, we're both old enough to remember the days before Invisalign. I worked for an orthodontist who, in the Riverdale office, which I subsequently bought, Dr. Gordon Gaynor. He had a practice in Manhattan, and he was the guy. He was the Invisalign guy, but there was no Invisalign. So what was there? Well, he used the spring aligner or spring positioner on the anterior six teeth, and those were not a very elegant way. Patients didn't really wear them much during the day. Their speech was affected. He used to add acrylic to different areas to get the force levels just right. Did a lot of IPR, probably with crowded teeth because he wasn't expanding the arch. Where I'm going with this is the fees for this new source of business. These adults coming in who would not wear
Right.
braces.
Hmm.
He was charging, I think, $1,800 for one arch, $2,700 for two arches.
Hmm.
And, it brought in a lot of volume at the time. And, we saw the patients maybe 5, 6 times, and basically would get it to a certain point where we'd say that's good enough and they would wear that as the retainer. And we were happy. We didn't compare that to a braces case because we knew that the goals of the treatment were less. Now, by no means am I suggesting that Invisalign is scaled down compared to braces, but there are so many Invisalign cases that we treat that are non-extraction, where we're not changing the molar relationship, where we are broadening arches and aligning it. And as the term has been used before, if you set the ClinCheck up right, it really does sort of go on autopilot in a sense. And look up at the end of the day, you have not spent a lot of time in the office with that patient, and maybe even not even a lot of time in front of the computer screen. So from that standpoint, it just seems to me, compared with braces, that you could consider charging a lower fee to try to convert more patients without sacrificing anything. Now, I understand that if 100 braces candidates walked in and every one of them you did instantly Invisalign over that, well, right off the bat, you would take a hit because you would lose the lab fee on every one of those patients. So that's tough to just do across the board, but you can
Hmm.
pick your spots. And I think we have to be analytical about the changes that we're making in a particular Invisalign case, and then say, hey, you know what? Even if this is going to be a really nice transformation, it's really not going to require a lot of clinical time and sweat. And therefore, why charge more? I understand the analogy, as I said in the post, that less time in the office, you could say you're going to upcharge, like
Right.
a direct flight should charge more than a round trip flight. I
Right.
understand that to some extent. But the bottom line is, I think to wrap my point up before we go further, I wouldn't even phrase it, and I should have phrased it differently. I almost feel like we charge so much less than we should for braces, given what we do, the amount of time we spend on people, the comprehensive nature of a lot of those cases. So the net effect of my philosophy really could also be I'm going to raise my braces fee and leave my Invisalign where it
Hmm.
is now. And that's the same point that I am going to have lower Invisalign fees, but not by lowering it, but by raising my braces fee. So it might sound like splitting hairs, but it's really not in a sense because
Right.
the amount of work in a braces case, it just far eclipses. And I understand maybe more clinicians, different clinicians are more efficient with braces than I am, have less broken brackets,
Hmm.
don't have to do second order bends as much as I might, or use computerized systems. That's a different ballgame. But
What if
No,
the
so,
yeah,
what if
I
the
agree
patient
with you.
says to you, "But you're seeing me much less with this, so why am I paying more money?"
well, you get Barry, that's where it gets into that fine line about how often you see somebody in
Right,
the office.
exactly. Yeah,
And,
right.
and,
So
and I have
Right.
felt,
Right, right. Before we get to that, though, I
yeah,
just want to talk about this a little bit more. So you make me think, and I remember there was a time, I remember the time where I decided I would never do another spring aligner again because the patients would never wear it during the day.
never
And
wear it.
these are the ones that would like walk in, like pointing at a tooth, like they walk in the front door, like, this one, it's still not straight, and we're like, well, you're not wearing it during the day. I can't. This thing, I've lectured on this. when the spring aligner became this thing, like I can't wear this
This
thing
thing.
during the day, I knew it was my life was over. But interestingly enough, those cases would come in, right? Little minor social six kind of cases, good posterior occlusion, patient had some relapse, whatever. And right, we would charge 1800, 2400, 2800, whatever it was. And we kind of, and we think at the time the logic was, look, there's sort of like little cases, we're going to make a few bucks. It's going to be not that much time. The appliances were not terribly expensive to get from the
No, like
lab.
$75 or $100.
Right. So you figure out, you see the patient a few times. I mean, and I have to say most of them were happy. So now, and you brought this up, so you say, okay, let's say you charge, pick a number, $2,500 for like that little spring aligner, nothing lower anterior case, right? So now the patient comes in, and your full Manhattan fee, let's say, for argument's sake, is somewhere between $6,000 to $8,000, for a full case, right? And now, so you think, well, maybe, if I'm going to do this like lower stage Invisalign case, and it's the same kind of case as a spring aligner, but now I'm going to do it digitally with Invisalign or clear aligners, and you charge 5,400 or 5,800 or 4,900, even with the lab fee, which you also get a discount and everything else, you're still far ahead of what you were doing when you made a few $100s profit with the spring aligner
And
cases,
you're
right?
getting a
Isn't
much
that, isn't
better
that your point?
result. You're getting a much better result because you're getting better
Yeah.
compliance and you're getting a computerized alignment. Yeah.
Right, and you're not yutzing around with acrylic in the lab and bending the bow and the cracks and all those other things. So it's really an interesting point that somehow or other, maybe we, I don't know, and I got greedy, but maybe we just had these rising expectations. But for those low stage cases, you could still charge a very reasonable fee, which gives you a reasonable profit margin, and probably have, right, like you said, less aggravation. It's an interesting concept.
Right. And also, this is too complex to get into much at all here, but um, I know that all orthodontic cases are not alike, but I have an important story to dovetail into this. When I first came into Manhattan, somebody came into me who had a phase one done quite nicely by a very highly regarded, well known orthodontist who we still hold each other in high esteem. And they told me the name and they loved the practice, but they were surprised because when they went back and all the teeth came in, they were told it would be 2 years and $6,000. And the mother said, I'm not an orthodontist, but I look at these teeth and they look pretty good. And maybe there was a high canine. And she said, it's not even the money, it's just 2 years. I called up the orthodontist. I introduced myself and I said, and I did this with Eric Plumas before I knew who Eric Plumas was. Somebody was coming for a second opinion. And now, Eric, if you're out there, he's always been like, that was so nice what you did. So I called up this orthodontist and I said, listen, I'm just here new. Nice to meet you. You did this great phase one. Patient came through for second opinion. It looks pretty good. And I think they're just wondering, it's not even about money. Maybe to me, this looks like 9 months of braces, as opposed to 2 years.
Mhm.
And he said, well, Adam, we kind of have one way of doing it because, the parents talk and it gets kind of complicated. And, we just like to kind of do it one way. I mean, if anyone was announcing to me like factory, that's sort of
Mhm.
what he was saying. And that is an example of where that person, the case you described, let's say it's a little bit narrow arches crowding, perhaps a relapse case. We do that with Invisalign, and oftentimes we may sort of say, okay, 5,600, whatever,
Mhm.
6,000, which may not be that different than what we're charging some kid who's a 4 bicuspid extraction or a class 2 div 2 that we're treating for 2 years.
Right.
And so I don't think you can just sort of say it all washes out, the hard cases wash out. It's almost a thing of fairness. I think we try to both be fair, you and I,
Mhm.
and reasonable. So I just said, if I put braces on that person, I'm going to charge them that same $6,000 for braces that I'm charging somebody who's going to be in treatment for 2.5 years.
Mhm.
So I think it's not even so much about Invisalign. It's like the kind of cases that we see come in, not all, that maybe warrant this further review of maybe having a lower case and forgetting about the lab fee to some extent and thinking about how efficient and effective it will be.
What if somebody though is not compliant and all of a sudden a 9 month case turns into 24 month case on their because of them? Are you still
With
are
Invisalign.
yeah? So
Well, one thing that Barry and I have talked about sometimes when we sort of bounce ideas off each other is, the idea, and I know this is not my idea, it's out there, where you give a lower fee for Invisalign and you say, at this point, we'll have a fine result. And if there's any further treatment needed, there's an additional fee.
Okay.
And I don't think that's too hard to implement. And I've been better about being crystal clear that even if after 8 months you still feel like your bite's not comfortable, if you feel like there's a tooth that is hitting too high, anything other than your teeth not being perfect, then we have to charge you more. And usually, Barry, a lot of these patients, when you mention a lower fee, they're like, oh, yeah, I'm not a perfectionist. I won't be a perfectionist. And of course,
Yeah.
those are
Right.
the perfectionists. And then
Those are-
I have to bite my lip from
Right.
saying, like, I thought you weren't a perfectionist. Ha ha.
Yeah.
That's the
Right.
ha
Or say,
ha.
oh, you're not a perfectionist. So which tooth don't you want straight? Oh, I want them all straight. So what part
Yeah.
of that is not being a perfectionist?
Yeah, I
I
show
love
them the
that. I love that one.
screen. I show them the screen and I show them the alignment on the screen. And then I'm like, show me on the screen which tooth isn't straight. And they're like, it looks pretty good there. No, but give me a mirror. Give me a mirror. I'm like, no.
No,
Look at
I
here's
can
this.
feel it. I can feel it
Look at
with my
this. Look at
tongue
this.
on the inside. I can tell.
So, Dean, I think when you're charging a high fee for Invisalign, it really makes sense, or a fee similar to what your braces fee would be. Then I think it's only right to kind of handle that poor cooperation as long as possible.
sure.
It's baked into the cake. But if
Right.
you want to get more aggressive with your fees, if you want to do the lower fees because you're expecting that kind of cooperation, then you have to have some protection. You have to have something that says, and at a certain point, I guarantee you that your teeth will look better. Not a bad, easy guarantee. I
Right.
guarantee you they'll look significantly better, but it's very possible there'll still be something you find slightly imperfect, and we can do more. And the additional fee might bring us to where the full fee would be, but it gives you a chance to sort of opt out and stop at that point or go forward. And I do much better point re-emphasizing this so they don't only hear the low fee and forget that last
You have to
Yeah.
be
last point.
so transparent on that
Yeah.
because now with the public has such ammunition, they can go online and say bait and switch, and I was promised this, and all of a sudden he's trying to charge me more money, even though you had this discussion. So is it in writing? Do you have how do you even handle that there as far
I
as your
have
discussion there?
I do more and more with emails because I can say, and I need you to respond to this email or something
Okay,
like that. We put it
good.
in
Okay,
writing.
good.
And
Okay.
Barry, this also ties in a little bit to uh, monitoring, to make sure you get that
Mhm.
good cooperation. And I know that's probably one of the values you have if somebody's not doing like the direct monitoring like they're supposed to, or if they're sending in pictures with terrible fit of the aligner right off the bat. That gives you proof that,
Yeah,
hey,
it's actually a really good observation because I have never been able to pull that trigger to say, well, this is your fee, and then if you're not happy, we'll go more because I guess my anxiety is always that, like, and that they
you
get
want
the
to make the
creeping
patient happy. You don't
expectations
want them
that
getting upset with
that
you.
they'll say, well, yes, I know, like I can imagine the scenario where I say to the patient, well, Adam, don't you remember that we had this conversation about going to a certain level and then upgrading, with an initial fee, and the patient say, yeah, but they're not as good as I thought they were going to be to get to that upgrade point. I'm always worried about that kind of stuff, but it's a
I know.
really,
And it
really good
happens.
right? They say, oh, well, but still, I mean, it's still not as
But
good as,
Barry, I
yeah,
think you can actually say, and do you know what? I do this a lot, and usually I think people understand. But I have to say, there could be a point where you say, no, I remember you said that, but I don't know, I just didn't feel like I got what I paid for. And then I'll
right,
still say, no, you paid for this really great improvement, but the lower fee you wanted, if they
right,
asked for it, the lower
right.
fee I offered was a chance for you to see the benefit of things and then decide if we go
Yeah.
further. And you know what? If you don't like this, I'll just charge you the full fee and I'll give you as many aligners as your cooperation, even reasonable cooperation
Right.
will
Yeah,
dictate.
it's a great observation. But the other good point is that I think you're right. You can say, ammunition would be, well, you haven't done a dental monitoring scan in 2 months. You're supposed to send us one every week. You failed appointments, or and when you do the scans, you've got upper aligner 7 and lower 4, and you're not really, you're not keeping your end of the bargain here. So I think that does give you good ammunition, which actually brings me to the next thing I wanted to talk about. So you and I have had, Adam and I, for people that don't know, we probably text multiple times a day, and it's always like, we'll just put like the patient that comes in,
With no
with
aligners.
this is when I sent it, the 8-year-old that comes in with filthy teeth, and the mom swears that she water picks the teeth every day. We always send like these like scenarios that come in that sort of like burn us a little
It's
bit.
like writing in our live diary. Like
Yes.
somebody would write at night to bounce, to get their feelings out. We do it,
Yeah.
and then we support each other or whatever. Yes.
Yeah. So we're talking all the time, but one of the things that we were talking about, and I've sort of tried to twist your arm a little bit, maybe to consider looking at dental monitoring, because I think it really does fit more into your philosophy than you think. But and you have your reasons that at this point in your career, or you think it's good that you're not doing it, and that's fine. I don't want to talk about that per se. But you had also, maybe you posed on the Facebook group that there may be other ways to utilize your staff, who are already there and you're already paying, to maybe do some monitoring without having to use the technology, right?
Yes.
So
And
what were you thinking about there?
okay, and I'm going to answer this question, and it's also going to answer a question that Dean asked earlier today, um, about patients sort of like wondering, why am I not coming in that much, perhaps, or am I going to see the doctor? So what I've been verbalizing in the last couple of weeks since I'm crystallizing this philosophy, where I'm not revamping my fees to make them so low, the Invisalign fees, but I'm being maybe a little more aggressive, and I'm actually saying to patients, so this is a really interesting model. My skill with Invisalign, as opposed to braces, is what I build into your aligners. And if you wear them like you're supposed to, it will play out well. You can go to some doctors and maybe the plan won't be as predictable. But that's my skill, to know what Invisalign can do, what it can't do as predictably. You just have to wear the aligners. And what I'm not embarrassed to tell you is that the visits are very cursory. You're in and out. And a lot of times when I have patients in the chair, I'm like, especially the first visit, when they've had a lengthy visit to get their
Mhm.
aligners, get attachments, hear the whole spiel, then it's like a 2-minute visit because the aligners usually fit great at stage whatever. And then I say, all right, I got to tell you, it's really embarrassing, but we're done for the day. That's it. That's what we do with the visits. And so now up front, I'm saying to some of these patients, so you know what? During the process, you're going to come in, several times. I now been seeing patients every 10 weeks, 12 weeks, and I know you're ramping it up more, and there's a lot of variability in this space. But I think what I'm starting to do is, because I have staff that is in the office on days when I'm not there, because I don't have the heart to have the loyal staff work less, even though I am preferring to work a little less. Although I am going to another office too. I have two of my own offices, and that's another discussion about what do you do with that extra time. It's not that I'm playing golf or traveling. The young guy can hustle and he can go into another practice on the day when he's not in their office and do the orthodontics there. So
Mhm.
that free time can be multifunctional. But what I'm doing is I'm saying to these patients, and you know what? There's going to be some visits when you're going to come in, and my staff is going to check your aligner for the fit, and I won't be there that day. And that will be fine. And if they see anything that is not right, they're going to scan your teeth, and I'm going to look at it and probably make aligners from that point, which can happen. So I'm telling them that upfront, I'm building their expectations, not just about a great result, but about the fact that the visits are easy and quick. And yes, there are people, Dean, who will understand the value in that and don't need to have you there,
Exactly.
have your handhold. I do say to some patients, you have a choice. We have 18 aligners left. I can see you in 9 weeks, and then 9 weeks after that, or I'll give you all 18. I think you'll be good for that. If you have any problems within it, let me know. Most will choose the 18, but some won't. They perceive the value in being seen, especially older patients. They want
Yes,
value. They
absolutely,
want
older
to, or,
patients.
or if it's a case that's a perio case or a
Hmm.
cooperation patient, I think then you would want to see them more. So I have that flexibility to, again, to pick my spots.
Yeah.
Which is important. You have to weigh that and understand. And people that um, understand being more efficient, more effective. Life is busy now, and especially a family that's mom's got 2, 3 kids, and the fact that if they could come in less, get the results that you both want, is there should be a value to that, because it's making life
Hmm.
easy for them. To be able to have to schlep a racket through office, more times, that is going to be something that there's no discount for that. That's actually a premium.
Right. Yes. So that's great. But it's really that fine line, because the doctors who have talked about just seeing patients, oh, we give all 30 to them and we see them when they're 30. I say it, maybe that was a disparaging tone. I didn't mean it quite that way. But a
Yeah,
patient
because I'm one of those, but that's fine.
no,
No, but you can be
right. But a
disparaging. I
patient
think it is controversial. I mean, it's okay to say
But the
that.
thing is, a patient there will be some, maybe 10%, 15%, that will
Absolutely, that want to
see
come in more
through
often.
it. And not because they're not being monitored, because I think some people may see through it like, of course he wants to see me less because it's
Right.
good for him. It's good for
Right.
their efficiency. Now that may
So
not
that,
be. Yeah,
yeah, I don't mean to cut you off. So
yeah,
Adam, that is a very common, because I'm a big advocate. I'm a KOL for dental monitoring. So, but I'm a big advocate for it because I think it works great. And everywhere I go, there's a doctor. It's funny how we always use this doctor voice. Well, I don't know why every doctor talks that way,
Can you
but
go
that's the
back to the
doctor
next
voice.
slide?
Yeah.
Excuse
Yeah.
me, can you go back to the previous slide?
Yeah, 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 yeah. But well, my patients love me, and would be very upset if they, didn't come to the office. And honestly, so now I've been using DM for 4 years. Um, I had maybe two patients, and both were older baby boomers who said to me, "Oh, they retired. Probably the orthodontic appointment was like they circled it on the schedule because they like got out of the house."
Yeah.
Those two patients said, "I would really like to come in every month," and I was like, "Of course, it's always about the patient." But other than those two patients, and it may be a little bit different in suburbia. Adam's practice is an hour south, and it's like a different planet. You're in Manhattan. I'm in northern Westchester, but um, in suburban Westchester, where 99% of the time the patients still come in with a mom. It's just very unusual, that they come in with a dad. Um, Everyone's busy. Both parents are working. The kids have soccer and gymnastics and ballet and all the kind of stuff. So the number of times that I've had pushback from a mom with a patient who said, you're charging us this money, and that's the parent voice,
Right.
right? But the doctor voice and the parent voice says, you're charging us all this money and you're not seeing us, is honestly, it's been zero. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating. So I have found that doctors have this huge guilt, maybe a concern, or guilt about the business or whatever it is, that there's going to be a cohort of patients that, and again, maybe it's different in other parts of the country, that are going to be feeling like you're ripping them off for not seeing them. But boy, I honestly, I have not seen it. Parents, we say, look, you don't have to come as often with Invisalign and with braces, and the moms say, wow, that's great, because we're, especially with COVID and
Busy.
everything else,
Sure.
they're really busy. So I know that's a huge concern. It's just something in my own personal practice, that I haven't seen. But I completely agree with you, Adam, that we do it in an individual basis, and if we get that sense that the patient or the parent wants a little bit more hand holding, or the patient's non-compliant, or like the perio case, there are always going to be those cases that I do want to see, or they want to come in more often, and of course we're always happy to see them. But it doesn't really ruin the model, because the vast majority are perfectly happy with the whole teledentistry thing. But it's a great observation.
It is. Technology comes with the price as well. For both sides. Parents have to realize that it makes their life so much more easier, and it gives them, and also gives better results. I have aligners in, and I can't wait to scan because it keeps
Yeah,
me
and I don't want to
compliant.
see you anyway in the
Exactly, of
office.
course, and it makes me just like, can't wait to get these things off. So the quicker, if I get the thumbs down from you, I'm like, I get mad at myself. Why did I not? Why did I not pass? From
And
Of
it
you know
course,
there.
what's
you're
really
not wearing.
neat,
Of
Adam,
course,
and
I'm
you know
not
what's
wearing them
nice too.
now. What?
What's that?
I
No,
was going
it's
to say,
nice
Dean's
too
going to
is
say, of
that
course, I'm not wearing them now. Yeah, go.
one thing that I think I've really learned, Adam, from our frequent discussions is, and you and I talk about this all the time, is that we've had this. I've said it before. When was the last time you actually won an argument, right? Like you never really win an argument. Like the
Ever.
most you're ever going to do is get somebody to begrudgingly agree with you, just so that the argument ends. But what I've learned, like from conversations with you, is that there really there isn't like a right way to do it, and I think that what works for you in your practice, in utilizing your staff, it's a great model. So I don't mean at all to criticize or say, the way that I'm doing it is better. And I think it's just interesting that, we can have a conversation with like different approaches, in the same relative geographic area, and they both work for us. And I think that's really great. So again, did not mean at all to cast aspersions,
Oh
because I
no,
think what you're
no.
doing is actually like it's just sort of another angle to do the same thing in a way that you're comfortable with. And I think that's great.
Well, I love the fact that that Adam for starting this year, because it really gives good feedback across the board from the community and how people think and their reactions, and somebody in the middle of the country, middle of Kansas and Nebraska, has completely different methodologies, different thoughts than somebody in a highly metropolitan area. And it's interesting to see how they perceive things and how they run their practice. Everybody is different. Like, as you said, you don't use the same aligners in every patient. Every single mouth is different, and every practice is different.
Well,
Um,
sorry to interrupt you, but on that point, the individualism, so to speak, there's a lot of offices have one fee or two fees or
Hmm.
tiers. And, you don't have to across the board say this person, everyone gets 16 aligners. That's how we do it. You have the
I don't need it.
ability, and you don't have to say, I'm going to charge less for Invisalign in my office than braces for every case. You can apply it when you have that case that comes
For the
in
right
where
patient.
you have that perfect ratio where you just know, like, for example, a space closure case, class one, slight open bite, upper and lower spacing.
Hmm.
What could be that Invisalign case is going to be complete autopilot when there's no bolt in, no IPR needed. It
Hmm.
just where the aligner's done. I
Right.
want to start that case. I don't want them leaving the office. I don't want to overcharge for that. I don't care that the profitability of that case will be less. And guess what? Maybe their mom then is going to see the Invisalign and get excited about it. And they're
Right.
not going to get excited about braces probably. So, you know,
Yeah,
Exactly.
the
they're
individual.
all great point, really great
You
points.
have to see the forest through the trees and play the long game. Is that right? So, which is great. So, this is interesting. I love hearing different perspectives on things, and I have clients all over the country, and everybody has different pricing models. Some people want to do, as I mentioned earlier, want to do volume. Some people um, want to have more of a boutique type of practice and pricing. But at the end of the day, um, you guys should be getting a higher fee, obviously, than somebody without the experience. And like, once again, anybody that is listening that is not an orthodontist and thinking about getting braces or Invisalign, we highly recommend to go to a professional for sure. You get the results, you get the example you want. You'll be seeing them anyway if you don't go that route, which is important. And I'm sure you guys have seen that as well. That's a whole different podcast to do.
Especially the dentist who always says he wants the best for their patients,
Mhm.
and then now that he's doing Invisalign or she's doing Invisalign, does all the cases themselves and never sends it out to the referrer.
Except for the
Exactly.
kids, right, Adam?
Yes.
Right.
Right? They go, oh, we treat all the patients in, but I want you to treat my kids. I just had that recently, and I'm like, oh, my, that's
It's interesting. This is great.
Yeah.
Um, so we're gonna end it on here, guys, because we could keep talking about this, but I really appreciate the feedback and starting the conversation there. So keep that going. Everybody out there in podcast land, check out the Aligner Insider Clinical Group. We have a lot of great content down there, a lot of great conversations. This is one of them that we haven't spoke about before, and after 100 and some odd episodes, this is a great program to talk about. So, and as everybody's different, and then we'd love to hear feedback more. So, guys, keep that thread going. Anybody has any other thoughts on it? Just we'd love to hear more comments and see what was working for you.
Well,
So,
thank
Yeah, and
you
I want to
guys
make
for
the
having
comment
me.
too, Dean, before we sign off. Maybe, and Adam has a few closing remarks too. But I want to make the comment that I don't know if you noticed, Adam, but I thought the conversation, like on that whole thread, and there were 50, 60 comments. I was actually really pleased. I made the comment on the Facebook group, but it was really nice to see that it was professional, it was respectful. There were some people that like sort of disagreed, but there's nothing wrong with that. Like I
exactly.
don't know what happened to like this whole idea of there having people having like disagreements and talking it through and still being friends. So I was really pleased to see that the conversation I thought was incredibly productive, and it wasn't like some other groups that I've
Right.
seen, that
Exactly.
whole
Yeah.
shaming thing, because that
Right.
the internet shaming machine is not something that we're looking to do.
Right.
Don't you think so, Adam?
Yeah, and it's not even an orthodontic message boards in our neighborhood. We have that next door. I don't know if you
Yep.
have that,
Yep.
but people, it's kind of like a Facebook for your
Sure.
neighborhood.
We have
And
that.
people, especially through the pandemic, were posting things like, "Hey, is anyone concerned about the noise outside 440?" And people would then respond like, "To Manhattan, like
Yeah,
nasty,
yeah,
nasty." About everything. And I would be
Everything.
writing things like that. This is ridiculous. Why is this person? Maybe
yeah.
they should be a little thicker skinned, but there's no reason to ridicule them.
Right.
One of the
Sure.
orthodontic blogs, somebody was they clipped an Instagram video that she had posted, and they started saying things like an
Mm,
orthodontist, glorified dental assistant, and I was like, "Are you serious?" And I went to
right.
the head of the. I left the group. It was a new group. And I went to the head of it and I said, "You better take this down right now. This is ridiculous. You're going to look terrible." And it was Crazy.
Yeah,
So I'm glad you
Right.
appreciated that.
Sure.
Yes,
We
I
do.
I
remember.
Thank you.
very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for starting. It was good.
Yeah,
We do.
somebody wrote on that post. Sounds like a great idea if you want to make less money and work harder or something like that. You know, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. The
It
trolls.
happens.
There's always
It
the
happens.
trolls under the
Of
bridge,
course.
but
Right.
yeah,
Right. Well, again, thanks so much for joining
All
us,
right,
Adam.
great.
And just give you a little plug here. So if somebody's interested in talking to you, as far as being a colleague and just getting more information, picking your brain, what's the best way for somebody to reach you?
But I have a nice Instagram page where I
Okay.
post a lot of before and after pictures. Good Ortho. That's my website too.
Okay.
Goodortho.com and at Goodortho on Instagram.
Great. Appreciate that. Thanks so much for,
Thank you guys.
for starting that and being part of it. And thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Barry, thanks as always for, your insight. This was great. Everybody out there at podcast land, hopefully, you got some great insight as well. Some industry leaders here and how they think, and we'd love to hear feedback from you. So, can't wait to hear some great ideas coming down the pike. Please keep that thread going. Anybody who hasn't responded yet or has some questions, be cool about it, and we can keep this going because there's always love to hear different thoughts. So, with that said, everybody out there, be happy, be smiling, and once again, as the great Jerry Garcia said, nothing left to do but smile, smile, smile. Thanks, everybody. Till the next time. Bye bye.